Another Manhwa here. Shout out to the Manhwa Show. Link to the channel in the description below. This is the video. Their video is what I'm reacting to. He's the strongest human. The strongest human, returns back in time to complete his revenge against monsters. That means he still wanted the smoke. So we're about to get right into it. Let's go.
The Fog Flower Party was the strongest group created by players. It was gathered here today to clear one of the 8 black dungeons in the world, which no one had subjugated thus far, the Dungeon of Abyss. Leading the party was someone who was known as the Undead, one who cannot die at all, a berserker player who lived for the sake of killing monsters, Noh Eunha. This was also the place which ended his 32 years life as well. Eunha kept on killing monsters which appeared all around him. When he finally killed the last one of them, he realized that all of his team members were dead.
Blurry.
Even though he was sad and frustrated, he went on towards the boss room himself, determined to finish him. As he opens the gate of the boss room, he sees darkness, a darkness so dense that even light would change its course so as not to offend it. In this darkness rests a terrifying entity known as the Master of Darkness. The Master of Darkness opened his eyes, and Noh Eunha was pierced by the power of darkness.
Turn my man into a donut. He just got aced. That's crazy. That's crazy. Why they doing people like Ace nowadays?
He was blasted out of the room and his body was covered with injuries. That is when he realized that it was impossible for humanity to defeat the Master of Darkness. He was too strong, so much stronger than any human could fathom. Eunha sighs and laughs in a mocking way, as this place was probably going to be his grave. As he was about to die, he hears the trembling voice of a woman. He turns his head and sees a woman crying and trying to heal him. He was shocked to see Lee Yujong, his partner, alive. He then urges her to run quickly, but the girl, being stubborn, was still healing him. Then she realizes that his injuries are too severe. Only a miracle could save him now. As Eunha was reminiscing his past, the girl remembers something, and with tears in her determined eyes, says something unprecedented. Even if I have to turn back time, no matter the cost, I will do it. Suddenly a tower of light falls on them, and before Eunha could process what was happening, he found himself in front of a couple who were saying his name. At first Eunha was confused, but then the confusion turned into shock because what Eunha thought to be the afterworld was nothing but his home. He then realized that he had returned back to time when he was 1 year old, and the couple...
Right, he went back in time, right? That's where we're at right now. But the question is, because the girl was by him by the stream of the light, did she also get sent back in time, or is it just him? One of the questions that popped into my head. Let's find out.
standing in front of him were his parents.
Because she could just been using the magic or whatever the case may be, but we'll see.
He remembers that until someone activates the miracle, it was impossible to turn back time, which means Yujong activated the miracle right before he died. Well, she was one of the 12 thrones, so it was possible for her to do that. Eunha never would have thought that he would be able to see his parents once again, as they died to the monsters when he was 6 years old. From then onwards he lived in hatred and had one purpose: to annihilate all of the monsters. But now he had been given a second chance, and this time he will protect his family and change the future. But the problem here is, even though he had the memories of the future, he was powerless as he was a baby. In other words, he couldn't do anything. His daily routine consisted of eating and sleeping. But today he made his first progress. He learned to roll. Cheering him from the side was his elder sister, Noh Eunha. The memories of his sister were even foggier than those of his parents in his mind. But there was a moment he remembered clearly, the moment where she hugged him tightly and said she would protect him. That was also the day his parents died to the monsters. Now, seeing her once again made his heart warmer, and yes, he even completed the mission to roll over. The girl was very happy and excited seeing this and hugged him. Now, Eunha was 9 months old. He was training his mana while sitting alone in the room.
Boss baby.
Even if it is just a small amount, mana still existed in the atmosphere. Eunha was going to gather as much mana as he could in order to increase his mana capacity. Suddenly, he hears the voice of his sister, who once again came to play with him. In these months, Eunha discovered something shocking. His little sister, who always disturbs him, contained a lot of mana. So much mana that it was overwhelming to even look at it.
Sure no.
His sister picks him up and says that she would teach him walking. And so another 4 years passed. Noh Eunha was now 4 years old and he could walk and talk. There were also other things he could do, and the time he spent outside home increased as well. His sister brought him out to the park once again. There were other small children playing, and seeing Eunha's sister, they greeted her. It was obvious that she was pretty popular among the kids. Compared to her sunny personality, he was really dull. As he was self-talking, he heard the rude voice of a girl. She rudely tells Eunha that he shouldn't have come here. Eunha replies saying that it was his sister who dragged him here, and at last says, "Stick Minji."
Come on, hey, what's your problem? Why you got beef? We just came to the park.
This obviously angers the girl, and she starts shouting that her name is Kim Minji, not Stick Minji. Eunha ignores her and walks away. Eunha's sister calls everyone and then decides to play cops and robbers. Eunha wanted to deny playing as this was too childish, but seeing her sister's beautiful smile, he stopped himself. They played until evening. It was evening and they both were returning back to home. Eunha was complaining to his sister that they were covered in dirt and Mom was going to nag both of them. Suddenly, he sensed a dangerous energy in the alley. He turned around, calmly looked in the direction of the dark alley and realized that it was a wild dog. Before he could take any action, his sister appeared in front of him to protect him.
They made that dog look vicious, didn't they? I thought I was about to say like a monster or something. That's a regular dog, just a wild one. That looked like a mutant dog, man.
Even though her legs were trembling, and she was terrified, she still stood in front of his brother to shield him from the danger. Seeing this, Eunha was reminded of the past where his sister protected him with her life. He couldn't do anything in the past but tremble in her sister's arms, but this time it would be different. He grabs her hand and tells her to leave everything to him. He appears in front of the dog and starts emitting terrifying amount of mana. Sensing that blue energy, the creature gets goosebumps and instantly gets terrified.
What dog is that?
As Eunha increases his mana, the dog gets horrified and flees with his tail between his legs. His sister, who was watching all of this, was shocked, and before she could say anything, Eunha consoles her saying he is strong. But looks like she was not shocked from fear, instead from excitement, as she leaps on Eunha and asks him if that was mana just now, and if he could teach her something cool like this. Seeing her being so persistent, he finally agrees to teach her. He was going to teach her anyway. Guess this incident made it much faster. He will always protect the beautiful smile on his sister's face. There is still 2 years before that incident, where his family was massacred. He was 6 years old at that time. He needs to stop that incident from happening. In order to change the future, he would do anything. 1 year has passed.
But so, if you think about it though, and have his sister train the mana get like that, he's like that, bro. At least they family gonna be stitched up during this incident, if it does still happen.
And now Eunha was 5 years old. He was teaching his sister to control mana by making her spin the top using mana. But he sure was disappointed. Even though his sister was born with tremendous mana, she had zero talent in controlling it. He sighed seeing her trying so hard.
This is my story, told my way. Babies!
26.
My name.
Eunha and his whole family were watching TV. His mother reminds Eunha that next year, when he turns 6, he has to go to kindergarten. This was not the first time his mother asked him. For the past 1 year, she had been bothering him, even though Eunha disagrees at first, but later, after so much persuasion, he finally agrees. He didn't want to be stuck between those whiny kids all day, but he had already promised. There was only 1 minute left until the end of the year. The anchor of the show that they were watching announced that today would be a moment that leaves a mark in the history of humanity. The screen then changes, and this time a girl broadcaster appears inside of a helicopter. She says that they are in the Jeonmyo Shrine, and this is the place where their ancestors, all of Joseon dynasty kings and queens, were buried, and today a new chapter of Korea's history was starting. Listening to this, Eunha reminisced about the past event where all of this started. After humanity understood how to use mana, people were busy using it all the time, and so they didn't realize that when mana is gathered, monsters are born from it. And in 1999, before the 21st century started, that incident took place. People called it the end of a century. Because of that incident, Korea lost more than 30% of its population. Humanity felt fear down to its bones. People had to live with the threat of monsters that had appeared out of nowhere. The existing government and laws lost their powers in such a world. The only power that could defeat monsters was mana. And this created a new hierarchy in the world. Korea's true authority, the wealthy people and the players who had strong mana, chased away the current authorities and emerged as the new forces of the world. But a lot of damage was already done by the time the situation stabilized, as cities lost their connection between each other, and isolated areas had no choice but to wait for the monsters to destroy them. But in a Korea that was filled with despair, a small flame was lit. At that moment there was a sudden change in the TV, and Eunha came back to the present. In the TV they see a beautiful woman who is called Goddess Lim Ga-yul. She used to be a famous actress and became the first-generation goddess who protected Korea. She possessed the ability to stop mana from going rampant and to disperse mana. All the players who protect the altar will become the swords that protect Korea, known as the 12 Thrones. Players are controlled by the Mana Management Bureau in name, but most of the powerful players will create clans and work in them. As the person who possesses a rare gist that can stop monsters and carries the public opinion of Korea, Lim Ga-yul was chosen as one of the top players, known as the 12 Thrones. She then performs the ceremony to become one of the 12 Thrones. She recites an oath to the gods, and then a cocoon of blue light envelopes the whole city. The news broadcaster was excited and explained that this hemispheric blue barrier, which was created now, covered the skies of Seoul, would prevent the mana from going on a rampage. Seeing this phenomenon, Eunha's family comes to the veranda to see it. Each and every family member prays to the light for the well-being of their family and the world. Eunha's sister tells him to pray to the gods too. Eunha sighs. It's because he knows that there were no gods in this world.
Damn.
Because the gods...
Damn. Hey, he said, hey, that's cap. Hey. Stop the cap. Ugly ass.
Gods had already died long ago. The blue phenomenon disappeared and the sky once again turned black. Seeing that his sister was still praying, he too folds his hands and says that in this life he wants to live happily with his, to pray to the gods too. Eunha sighs. It's because he knows that there were no gods in this world, because the gods had already died long ago. The blue phenomenon disappeared and the sky once again turned black. Seeing that his sister was still praying, he too folds his hands and says that in this life he wants to live happily with his family. Time passed.
Time skip.
Noh Eunha had now turned 6, and the incident that had caused Eunha to lose his family slowly approached. Having turned 6, Eunha had now enrolled into kindergarten. Teacher Teo was asked everyone to welcome a new friend who would be joining from today. He then pushes Eunha forward and asks him to introduce himself to everyone. Eunha then says his name and that he is 6 years old. The teacher obviously didn't expect such a short answer coming from a kid's mouth, so he says Eunha to introduce a bit more, as he would make a lot more friends with that. But who could have guessed that suddenly a kid would shout towards Eunha, and that kid was obviously the rude girl from earlier, Stick Minji. She asks why he was in this class too. Eunha was surprised too, seeing his so-called acquaintance Stick Minji. The girl gets up with anger all over her face, as she hated when Eunha called her Stick Minji. The teacher gets flustered seeing a fight break out, and he tells Eunha to calm down. Just after a second, all the students come flocking towards Eunha, obviously because they want to be friends with him. Seeing this, the teacher smiles and goes away. Some hours later, The exhausted Eunha walks out through the crowd of kids. He was exhausted answering all their questions. He then sees a signboard which said Children's Books Corner. He liked the silent atmosphere and casually picks out a book to read. He then took a seat on the table, unaware that there was someone sitting beside him. The girl looked at Eunha, who had a bored expression while reading the book, and thought of something. Suddenly there was an arrogant shout that disturbed the girl out of her reverie. An arrogant-looking kid appears out of nowhere along with his two underlings.
Hey, comment right now. Do they get folded or do they walk away? I'm gonna say they get folded. I want to see them get folded. I don't like bullies. Hey, fold them up.
Had a smirk on his face and asked the girl if she was reading once again. Didn't she have any friends? Why was she always alone? It was obvious that this kid was trying to bully her. The girl named Jian Hyang stutters, seeing the boy named Yoon Hyuk. The boy suddenly takes out her ribbon. Seeing this, the girl with tears in her eyes tells him to give it back, as this was a gift from his father. But the boy, along with his underlings, enjoyed the situation more and said he won't give it back. He even said that if she wanted it, then she would have to snatch it from him. Suddenly, all of them hear a cold voice saying, "This is so childish." At this moment, the three boys noticed that there was someone else in the room too. The boy named Yoon Hyuk was angry and felt offended. He then asks him to repeat what he said once again. Eunha stands up and comes in front of Yoon Hyuk and repeats himself.
Say it with your chest!
He once again says that Yoon Hyuk is childish and even asks if it was fun bullying someone.
Say it with your chest! He said, I didn't stutter. Childish, my nigga. Fuck out of here.
Yoon Hyuk got so angry that he threw a punch towards Eunha. Eunha dodged it and lightly kicked Yoon Hyuk's leg, which disbalanced Yoon Hyuk and he fell down.
Fold him.
The ribbon went flying and Eunha caught it before it fell on the ground. He then gave it to the shocked girl. He then says that don't get it taken away next time. Yoon Hyuk shouts at Eunha, saying that he won't get away with what he had done today. Eunha then coldly looks towards the three of them, and a little murderous aura leaked from him. The three got so scared that they fled at a fast speed. Suddenly, Eunha felt someone pulling his t-shirt. He then turns around and sees the girl Jian Hyang, thanking him with a sweet smile. Eunha sees something and felt shocked. The girl's stick Minji and the guy Yoon Hyuk both had mana that was a bit more than average. The other kindergarten kids had average mana, but the girl in front of him was in a whole other league. Her mana was so dense and abundant that it was clearly visible. Even more astonishing thing was that her mana might be more than his own sister. Another thing was that this girl was good at controlling the mana. That is why it was in order instead of being spread out. A kid like this would definitely be one of the 12 thrones in the future. But why had he never heard of her name before regressing? Even if she couldn't become a player, she would have been pretty famous just because of the amount of mana she had. He then thinks that it would be good to be friends with someone as talented as her. The girl was obviously surprised seeing Eunha taking the initiative to be friends with her. It was afternoon and Eunha came back home. His mother was very happy as today Eunha made her a paper carnation. Actually, she took it from Eunha's backpack. Eunha had made it to pass his time in the kindergarten, but seeing her so happy, he didn't say that. Eunha's sister had also made one, but it was not that good. Eunha then took out another paper carnation and his mother asked who he had made this one for. He then says that it was for Grandma. Eunha remembers that before regressing, whenever Parents' Day came closer, he would fold carnations at school. That was because he was forced to fold carnations because of class, even though his parents had passed away. Those paper carnations crumpled up from being shoved into his backpack. His grandmother later discovered them while cleaning and decorated it. Eunha made those every year, but never directly handed them to her. He believed that if he handed those carnations to her then, the yearning he had for his family and hatred for monsters would die out. He didn't show her any gratitude until the day she passed away, so in this life he wouldn't repeat the same mistake. It was May 4th, and the goddess government decided to open up the restricted roads. It was to let the citizens reunite with their families for the upcoming family month. In preparation for the appearance of monsters on the newly opened roads, they even hired a great number of players. But because of a kraken that appeared without warning, many people died. On their way to see their grandma that day, his family also came across the kraken and died. Days passed. Finally, it was the day before the holidays start. Yuna's father comes with a happy smile and tells them that tomorrow they were going to visit their grandma. Hearing this, Yuna was aghast. The day finally appeared, and he had to stop them no matter what.
The time is now. Oh, that's the end.
That's all for this video. I hope you had fun while listening to this story.
Alright, that's all we got for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I will be reacting to part 2, so if you're watching this on my channel, part 2 should be out the next day if it's not already out. Why you watch part 1? So yeah, but that's crazy. I'm excited for part 2. I want to see what the event is finally here. I want to see what happens. My voice is dying out, but I still wanted to watch this with you guys. You guys watch with me. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Another big shout out to the Manhwa Show, man. Well put together, good video, man. You gotta do the effects, the background music. He's pretty killer with the background music. But alright, see y'all in the next video. Part 2 coming soon.